Today, I want to talk about stating your intentions at work. Think about anybody in your organization or at the company you work for, and specifically think about the leaders that you know or that you see in the office or online if you're 100% remote. And think about what are the things that circle around in their head every single day? What are they thinking about? What are they talking about with their managers? And most importantly, how did they get to where they're at? Now, if you take a victim mentality, you can say that the world is against you. You can say that they got to hand it to them. It's by way of luck or God or whatever you want to say. But just think about that. And I want you to ask yourself the question, is that helping? Is that mindset really helping you get to where you want to be in your life? Earlier in my career, I was a entry-level employee at a company, and I was answering calls, doing customer service work, and I worked really hard. I always had this work ethic where I worked really hard, and I wasn't the best student, but if I applied myself to something, I gave it my all. And when it came to my career, I was always frustrated with how come I didn't get a larger raise, or how come I didn't get a promotion, or how come I can't get that job I just interviewed for when I feel like I'm better than that person. I feel like I could do more. And then I learned that it just doesn't work that way, that hard work doesn't always pay off. It's a strategic game. It's a chess match when it comes to your career, when it comes to leveling up. Now, before I get into all that, I just want to say I appreciate everybody that watches the videos. If you like this kind of content, I would encourage you to subscribe. My name is Ryan Holguin. This is the practical place where we like to say where project management meets real life. I am by day a project manager, and that has really transformed my life, how I see the world, and just given me a lot of purpose in life. So if you like videos like that, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can catch every single video I upload. Now, when I was dating my wife, we were at a church gathering and we met that way, and we were just friends at first, but then it got to a point where I wanted to get to know her more. And so what did I do? I asked her to go to coffee with me. And so, we got to know each other, and we only dated for, a handful of months before we got engaged and then got married. But even when we got engaged, what did I have to do? Well, I had to ask her to marry me, right? Your career is a lot like that. It's about stating your intentions. Now, kind of going back to the dating analogy, you can't pull everything from the analogy, but from a few parallels you can pull is, one, you have to build trust. So in your career, how are you building trust? Are you a faithful employee? Are you showing up to work on time? Are you, easy to talk to, easy to work with? Are you coachable? All those small things that people tell you that you learn in, youth football or whatever the case may be. Are you doing the little things well? If you're not, I would tell you that you need to start focusing on those things. And so a mind shift maybe you need to think about having is, you don't have to, but maybe something you want to think about doing is understanding what is important to your supervisor or your manager. They hired you, and one of your primary roles is, at least the way I view it, one of the primary roles is to make them look good. Now, how do you make them look good? Well, you do the things that are important to them. So if you're in customer service or an entry-level job and you're just meeting a quota, try to hit that quota all the time and make sure you got that knocked out. Now, here's where the strategic part comes in. You start having conversations throughout the year about your performance and about where you want to go. Going back to the beginning where I said, think about the leaders in your life. Think about the managers in your life. Think about your own manager and think about how did they get to where they're at. And honestly, I would encourage you to even ask them, hey, how did you get to where you were at? I'm curious to know your story. And a lot of the times you'll learn that people are more than willing to talk about themselves. We just have this innate thing in us to where we enjoy bragging or boasting or just sharing about ourselves. Good intentions or bad, it doesn't really matter. We just like doing that. And so when you ask somebody, hey, no strings attached, tell me about your career. Tell me about how you got to where you were at. I am sure if they're a good manager, they would be more than happy to tell you that story. And while you're having these conversations, I want you to think about, ask them, hey, I want to get to, I'm an associate level, or I'm a level, level 1 of this role. How do I get to level 2? What does that look like for me? I may not have the skill set right now, but what does it look like for me to level up to level 2? Or, hey, I see this other role. What does it look like for somebody, from your perspective, for me to get to that position? And like I said, people are more than willing to have those conversations, from my experience, because they want to talk about themselves. They want to give you that wisdom that they have or that experience that they have. And it's not like you're not sincere. You absolutely have to be sincere about caring about these things. But, it's a transactional sort of relationship to where you need something from them, and they're willing to coach you. They're willing to help you. We don't know what we don't know. And so when we ask people that are at least a level or two ahead of us, they should be more than willing to have that conversation with us. I did this in my career. There was a time where I was stuck in my roles. I got an entry-level position, and then I was able to transition to another sort of entry-level role, but it was a level up from where I was at. It was a little bit more specialized. And then I got to a point where I needed some purpose in my life. This was before I knew about project management, and I was meeting with a mentor, and I share a little bit of this in my video about how I became a project manager, so you can go check that out after this if you're interested in that story. But really what it was about identifying what department has project managers in them first. So how is this practically going to work out? I can't just become a project manager in my role. I might be functioning like a project manager, but how do I become one? By title. And so there was a department that I knew a little bit, the hiring manager. And even if you don't know the hiring manager, there's nothing wrong with just reaching out in an email. Obviously, organizations have different cultures. So however your culture works, it might be a little bit different. So this isn't 100% prescriptive, but it's the principle, the heart of the message is what I hope you hear today. And it's reaching directly out to that manager, scheduling some time with them, 30-minute talk, and really stating your intentions in the email or in the meeting request. Hey, here's who I am. Here's what I do. I'm really, really interested. I feel like my skill set is bent towards this, or I'm really interested in learning more about your team and how you guys operate. With, again, no strings attached, coming from a genuine place. I want to learn more. Do you have time this week or next week to talk about what your team does and how somebody like where I'm at can potentially get to an opportunity like that? Here's an important rule as well. Don't wait until there's a job posting to then go for the job. The best time to go for the job is when there's really no job, because there's no strings attached. Again, you're just building relationship, and you're kind of implanting who you are in their mind. So when they do need to hire somebody later, they say, oh, I remember that guy or that girl. They reached out to me a long time ago, and I've been working with them ever since. That's the first person I'm gonna reach out when I know that we need to hire. And this happened to me. When I reached out to this hiring manager, I said, hey, I wanna be a project manager. Do you have some time to talk? I wanna get to know more about what you guys do. And what does it take for somebody like me to get to that place? And we met for 30 minutes. And I don't remember all the details, but I remember a few specific things he said that one should work on. It was, there was a local community college, they have a certification program there. That would be really helpful because it teaches you, how to do certain skills that we have to do here, continue to do a great job where you're at. And that there was a few other things that he mentioned, but one of the most important things to consider when you're doing all of this is whenever a leader or somebody that you're asking for advice from, whenever they give you that advice, make sure to act on it. Don't just go through the motions and ask and then never follow through, because that's really doing the opposite. That's breaking trust, because you're not really following through. They see that you kind of want the promotion, but you're not really willing to put in the work. It's kind of weird. Why would this guy come talk to me and then not follow up? And funny enough, whenever they did have a job opening in their department, I would say it wasn't for a project manager role. It was like a representative role, an hourly role. But he called me when they had an opening and he said, hey, are you interested in this job? The end goal would be for you to be able to level up to a project manager. And now at that point, I have to weigh out the risk, right? Hey, I can take his word for it. I'm gonna become a project manager, assuming that I continue to work hard, or I stay here and look for a project manager role in the future. But what I did was I took the risk and I said, sure, let's do it. Signed up for that role, and then lo and behold, a few months later, there was actually another hiring manager that I just happened to work with in my role at that time, and just continue to do everything I could as best I could, state my intentions, ask for help, ask for mentorship from him, no strings attached. And he actually called me. This is a separate hiring manager. He actually called me and said, hey, we have a project manager role open. Are you interested in that role? And so what that did was that forced the hands of this new role that I had now with this hiring manager I originally reached out to, for them to say, hey, we heard, he reached out to us, said he was going to offer you this role. We also want to offer you a project manager role as well. We just want you to make your choice. Just let us know whatever you want to do. So I go from not really knowing, what I want to do, but the power of just stating your intentions, letting leaders and managers know, here's who I am, here's what I want to do. How would you suggest I get to that point? And then the key part is following through. Whatever they say, you follow through. That's going to pay a lot of dividends. And there's no timeline for this process, I will say. If you're in it for a quick fix or an overnight success, then I would say that this route is probably not for you. You probably need to try something else. But I'm speaking to somebody who wants to grow in their career, to know it's the long game. We're playing the long game here. This isn't a, like I said, overnight success. This is really just every day making small deposits into this bank account of just career growth and advancement. And so I ended up staying with the same role and just leveling up there just because I knew the team. But that's my story. So I would say, kind of going back to look at the leaders in your life, pay attention to them every single day, pay attention to how they're thinking, how they're operating, and ask yourself, what are they thinking about? What are they talking about with their managers? And then think about, what are you talking about with your managers? Are you having regular one-on-ones? Maybe you're in a department that doesn't really do that. Maybe you ask about that. Maybe you ask your manager, hey, I would like to meet, regularly, once a month, once a week, whatever the case may be, whatever cadence you guys can do, and just talk about career, talk about how I can grow in this role and in the company. Whatever the feedback they give you, I would, follow through with that. But going back to dating, it's like whenever you're trying to date somebody, you want to state your intentions. You want to let them know how you feel and where you want to go. And what you'll learn really quickly is that even though you think it might be awkward, it's really not that awkward, because this is how the system works. This is how people get promoted. It's not what you know, it's who you know. You've heard that saying. A lot of that is true. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And sometimes you might get passed up on a job that you weren't meant to get, and that's fine. You just continue to work. You take a lesson learned from that, and you continue to move forward. So if you found this video helpful, if you're somebody who struggles with stating your intentions, or you feel like it's awkward, let me know in the comments below. What do you feel about that is awkward? What do you feel like is holding you back? Why are you afraid to do that? I want a dialogue here. I want to have that conversation. I was somebody who was really struggling with that, and then I've just been able to just kind of break out of my shell and just have a lot more confidence now, and realizing it's not so awkward. It's not a big deal. This is what a lot of successful people do. They state their intentions, they follow through, and they continue to follow up with those people. So again, let me know in the comments below. I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you like videos like this, career growth, project management. I also talk about data, sports. I really enjoy those things as well. So if that's something that you find interesting, please subscribe here to The Practical Place, where project management meets real life. I'm Ryan Holguin, and I will see you in the next video.